Hey everybody. Well, these days they're remaking all kinds of children's stories, Mother Goose tales, Disney movies, and some fairy tales into horror films. And this is one of the earliest ones, I'm guessing, although this in its original time was pretty scary on its own. It's a Grimm's fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel. And I just found a 2013 version of this, actually filmed in 2012 and released in the early days of January 2013, direct to video, direct to DVD, no theatrical release for this. It's directed by Anthony C. Ferrante, and it's by the company called The Asylum. And I actually was curious about this because I hadn't really remembered the story. I had to go read about it to refresh my memory. Boy, I tell you, the original tale of this, just like Little Red Riding Hood, is pretty creepy. The original story of Hansel and Gretel are about a brother and sister who get lost in the woods, two children. They become very, very hungry. They stumble upon this lone house in the woods run by a wicked witch, but she's got like warts on her nose, really decrepit, an old lady. But at first, they think she's a sweet lady. They don't know she's really wicked. And turns out that the house that she's in is made of candy and cakes and sugars and all that kind of stuff. So the kids really go there and have a great time, and she takes care of them. But really, unbeknownst to the children, in the original fairy tale, she's actually fattening them up to eat them. And the end of the story has the sister, Gretel, actually push the Wicked Witch into the oven and kill her. And that's the kind of fairy tales they had back then. But anyway, so I was curious about the movie. How are they going to make a movie of this? Well, this is a modern retelling of the story. And the sister and brother, well, Hansel and Gretel, they are not children in this. I don't know how old they are, late teens maybe, and or maybe early 20s, the actors, I don't know. But they somehow wind up in the woods, and sure enough, they come across a house, and they come across the lady, an older woman, about 65, I would say here, in the actual looks. It was played by, get this, Dee Wallace. Dee Wallace is probably best known for her role as the mom in E.T., the extraterrestrial. And by watching the commentary afterwards, I heard that director Anthony Ferrante actually begged and pleaded with her. They couldn't really afford to pay her what she was worth, but he begged her to be in this movie, and it's a good thing he did because Dee Wallace is the whole movie, as far as I'm concerned, and she does a great job in this, and actually can be pretty intense and creepy at times, and really, really saves the movie pretty much. All right, the retelling has to do with Dee Wallace plays an older woman, a really sweet lady who makes sweets and baked goods, and she has her own little private business in town, a small town. Feels like it's a kind of Mayberry. I think it's supposed to take place in New Jersey, but turns out the sister Gretel actually works for her, and it's a coincidence that Hansel and Gretel, which who are like absurdly named in it. That's the only thing I can say. You got to call them Hansel and Gretel, but it doesn't seem at all appropriate here. It'd be one thing if their names were like, hey, how you doing, Jennifer? Hey, Mary, how you doing? What's up, Bob? Hey, what's up, Mark? But when they're calling each other by name, hey Hansel, Hansel, well hello Gretel, it's a little bit contrived, but it has to be really. And they're very surprised that the Dee Wallace character actually lives out here in a little house in the middle of the woods. They didn't know that she lived out there. And she is so sweet, so kind to them, gives them all kinds of food, especially sweets, and especially wants to fatten up the brother Hansel, who's starving to death by this time. And it turns out that there is an oven in a dungeon down below the house that has a whole bunch of prisoners in there, young people who have been kidnapped and kind of getting ready for the slaughter and for the meals. And she has two sons, this old woman, and the old sons are big, brutish kinds of characters. She had a daughter years ago who died very young as, I think, an infant, and she's been trying to replace the daughter, and she has her eyes on Gretel, who was very special to her as maybe being that daughter. But what's involved here is a whole series of gore and kind of some torture-y kind of scenes, but to me, not too intense compared to what some of these other films do, like Hostel and things like that. I mean, when the goal is to try and fatten up some prisoners you have down in the dungeon and to throw them in the oven, go figure what's going to happen. But I love the way the Dee Wallace character goes from sweet old lady. I didn't even know she was Dee Wallace at first. There was something familiar about her face. And as the movie went on a little bit, I said, I think that's Dee Wallace. It turned out I was right. And I just love her character and how she can be really kind, considerate, and helpful. 1 minute to turning into a complete, stark, staring, raving, maniacal witch the next time. Turns out that she's a lot older than she looks. She's centuries old and has been eating people, especially youngsters, in order to preserve her youth. And she's trying to groom Gretel the same way that she can be a successor, so to speak. And that's really already saying a lot about the movie. But yeah, it's outrageous, and kind of gory here and there. But I've seen a lot worse. I'm sure some of you out there who watch these kind of movies have seen a lot worse too. The effects are not bad. This is on a pretty low budget. I think it was made in 12 days or something like that. They had to do it. I think that's, if I remember on the commentary, that's what the director said. And it was really being a good sport of Dee Wallace to participate. And I think that they did a pretty decent horror movie out of this. I'm not going to say it's great. It is not. But it's pretty good considering what they had to work with. And I just like the whole idea of trying to update this Grimm's fairy tale classic and in some ways try to make it feel like it could happen in a modern time. There's also memories, remnants back to a film called Mother's Day, which some of you may know, and the Trauma Company is famous for that one. It has to do with an old woman who had two misfit kind of hulking sons who do her bidding, and that's what we have here. Two sons, one of them named John and one of them named Bobby, as in the Kennedys. And they kind of are the henchmen that do her work and try to get the victims for her. But yeah, it was a pleasant Halloween surprise here. Hansel and Gretel. No great shakes, but pretty good horror movie.